Hi there, history students. It's Miss Peterson. I am creating a recording from Friday's Class Connect, Friday, September 6th, because our recording did not work for our Class Connect session. So just wanted to make sure those that weren't in attendance did have something back, to refer back to. And also just wanted to make sure that we had this recording from day one of our Civil War mini unit. So I'm just going to go through the slides that I went through at the session on Friday. I'll probably recap them fairly quickly here, but just wanted to first give you an overview of the course here, as I did on Friday. I'm Mrs. Peterson, and I'll be your history teacher this year. There are a couple of photos of myself and my family on our vacation to the Black Hills this summer, and just some of the things that interest me. You guys had a chance to share some of the things that you did over the summer, so that was a lot of fun to see on Friday. Let's talk about our history course a bit. If you have not yet received your materials, you will be receiving two textbooks for this course. It's the title of our textbook is A History of Us, and we have volume C and D that we'll be working with this year. So volume C will carry us into January, and then we'll finish out the year January to June with volume D. So you should have both of those copies. We will be not using those the first 10 days or 10 lessons during the Civil War mini unit. We'll be using the online version of volume B that if you took this course in fifth grade, it might be familiar to you as you are reading for these 10 days that we're focusing on the Civil War. Uh, as you go through your plan to do a history lesson, make sure that you always start by, looking at the introduction to tell you exactly what you need to do for the lesson that day. Really important to pay attention to the lesson objectives. Those tell you what you should know by the end of class. Tells you exactly what you need to focus on, what the take-home point is. So definitely, pay attention to those lesson objectives. Most days you will read a chapter of the textbook from volume C or D. Sorry for that. Again, hard copy should be coming in the mail if you have not already received it. But we do have the link to the online versions of the book, the ebooks as well. Those are in the course materials folder in our American History class shell. All right, so Class Connects will be daily at 1:30 for this course. We will usually have a Class Connect every day. And I will basically just go through the lesson assigned that day. It's just a great time for you to to interact live with myself and your classmates. All Class Connects will be recorded. So again, Class Connects will be offered daily. The requirement is that you complete or attend at least one per week. So either attend live or view the recording of at least one per week, and I will track that through exit tickets. So we will have an exit ticket assigned to the week. You must complete that at least once in a given week. And I do encourage you to attend more, but again, that requirement is one Class Connect per week. So hope to see you there often. I did send out the condensed version of our course syllabus. The full syllabus is posted in the course under course materials. So if you want to look at that, it's there for you for your reference. We will be covering several units. We'll be covering units 1 through 7 during semester 1. And we do have a lesson assigned every day that school is in session. So make sure to refer to your plan for the history work each day. If you have to be gone, if you have to miss school, you are responsible for, completing any work that was missed on that day. So if you are going to be gone, say on vacation, if you know in advance that you're going to be gone, you can work ahead in this class. I usually have the units open about a week in advance. And if you need to access something sooner than a week, just let me know and we can make a plan for that. Academic integrity, basically do your own work. It's only hurting you and your education if you take shortcuts and if you submit work that is not your own. So it really doesn't hurt me. I promise. It's yourself that is hurt by that, and I don't think this would be a problem. But I just wanted to make a quick plug for academic integrity, doing your work honestly, making sure it's your own. All right, so what are we learning about this year in American History B? Well, all kinds of things. We are doing the Civil War mini unit for starters, and then basically we're going to be learning about American history from 1865 to present. A combination of history, geography, civics, and economics. We'll talk about, kind of the end of the Civil War to almost present day. So all kinds of things like westward expansion, foreign affairs and wars, World War II, World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Desert Storm, all kinds of things, different trends, different events, lots of different people in history and more. So there's a lot to cover this year in American history. All right, so we are going to jump in now to our first day of our mini Civil War unit. This is a pretty brief intro that I'll go over here in the next 9 minutes or so. So, the American Civil War, it's called the American Civil War because there have been many civil wars fighting amongst people in a country, many civil wars all throughout the world. So, we need to um, call it the American Civil War because if we're abroad and talk about the Civil War, they're not going to be sure which one we're talking about. So, the American Civil War, here we go. An introduction 4 million people were held as slaves in a country built on the principle that all men are created equal. Okay, that doesn't really make sense. All men are created equal, but we got 4 million slaves. And the number of slaves kept increasing as cotton became more and more important. Many people spoke out against the atrocities of slavery, but no one seemed to know a way to make it end. So we are going to spend about 5 days discussing things, events, uh, leading up to the Civil War, and then about 5 days talking about the war itself. So, to do for Friday, September 6th, and if you didn't get it done on Friday, you can also complete it on Monday, September 9th. We have open house that day, but if you have some extra time and didn't finish everything, you can take care of it then. We are reading chapter 37, History's Paradox, and chapter 39, The King and His People. And you also want to view all the online lesson content that you find on your plan. So that is what's going on. Again, this was Friday, September 6th. So our main questions to answer for day one of the Civil War unit: why was slavery a paradox in the United States? And how did the invention of the cotton gin transform the South? What is meant by the end of the slave trade in 1807? All right, here we go. We're going to dissect each of these questions, and hopefully you can walk away feeling confident about the answer to each of them. So first, why was slavery a paradox in the United States? Well, first of all, what is paradox? I had you look this up on Friday during the Class Connect, but the definition of paradox is a person or thing having qualities that seem to be opposite, a contradiction, right? So being tidy, but yet being covered in mud. A paradox uh, is something that we're going to talk about today. So, America is the land of the free where all men are created equal. That's what we like to think, right? That's what the founding fathers, uh, you know, wrote in language. Yet slavery exists in the land of freedom. A bit of a paradox, a little bit contradictory, right? Seems opposite, land of the free, when those in slavery are certainly not free. Those in slavery are certainly not, equal, right? There's not equality in that scenario. So a paradox in America is slavery in America, right? So supposed to be land of the free, yet there's slavery. We'll look at many images of slavery and of the Civil War era, this being one, many powerful images throughout this mini unit. So we need to talk about the slave trade. Between the 1600s and 1800s, roughly 12.5 million Africans were taken from Africa. 12.5 million people. And oftentimes they were taken, or most of the time they were taken in these large ships as part of the slave trade. Just like you might, stack a cargo ship full of materials. People, human beings, were stacked in these ships and carried from Africa to various places that we're going to look at now. So we can see Africa here, the continent of Africa. In this lighter orange, you can see the main areas that were the main sources of slave labor, of slaves, of people. And then you can see the darker orange, kind of the routes and where the slaves were being taken. So some taken to South America, Brazil area, and other areas in South America. A lot going to the West Indies, what we would now refer to as the Caribbean in most cases. About 5% going directly to the United States. But we'll take a look at some of the slaves that were going to the West Indies, eventually being sent to the United States as well. So on this map, again, you see the areas in Africa, you can see the different routes, you can see the different industries using, this key here. You can see where, coffee, coffee was being grown. You can see where sugar, was being grown. In the United States, cotton was the big one, right? We've got a lot of cotton here. We've got some rice as well. But cotton, as we'll talk about in a moment, was kind of king in America. But in this blurb, it says between 1650 and 1860, approximately 10 to 15 million enslaved people were transported from Western Africa to the Americas. Most were shipped to the West Indies. Again, West Indies is here, present day Caribbean. West Indies, Central America here, and South America. All right, another map for us to look at here. This kind of shows the exchange of people, right? Slaves being sent from Africa, slaves then going to North America, and then, different goods. So in North America, there would be various things, produced rice, silk, indigo, tobacco, and then sent on to Europe. And then from Europe, manufactured goods and luxuries would be sent back, or they would send various things to Africa, guns, cloth, iron, beer, etc. So you can just kind of see the exchange of goods that were part of the slave trade. So again, slaves going from Africa, many going to the West Indies, and from there, some were also moving up into North America. All right, so slavery in America, to kind of recap some of the things that we've seen on these maps. Most enslaved Africans were going to Brazil and the Caribbean, and West Indies as labeled on those maps. And roughly 500,000 people were imported directly to the United States. About 500,000 slaves imported directly to the United States. And U.S. slavery was a kind of slavery called chattel slavery. So that meant that there was direct ownership or full ownership of the person, just like you might own a car or a chair, whatever it may be. Chattel slavery, full ownership of the person, and slaves were bought and sold at auction. So if you've ever been to an auction, you can buy and sell goods. Human beings, slaves, were bought and sold at auction. Again, chattel slavery is full ownership of the person. Here is a sketch of one of these auctions, and you can see the slaves are in this pedestal of sorts, and I assume this is the auctioneer, and people kind of standing around. And something that strikes out to me is that there's this baby here. So you wonder, was that baby separated from its family? What happened to that baby? So King Cotton comes into play. Cotton changed everything. In 1793, Eli Whitney invented the cotton gin, which made cotton cheap to produce, and the cotton industry boomed, and that caused the demand for slavery to go up. Here is a sketch of the cotton gin. Here's Eli Whitney, again, the inventor of the cotton gin, and the South was all in on cotton in the early 1800s. There were no more small farms of tobacco or small farms of rice. These were huge plantations devoted to only cotton, and the South became dependent on slave labor. Slaves and cheap labor were essential for the success of these large cotton plantations. And the South turned into this kind of feudal society. Like we think of feudal society as kings and queens, lords, dukes, knights, and peasants. The South was a feudal society of sorts. So we have a feudal society over here on the left, right? You see the king and the nobles, the knights below it, farmers and peasants even further below. And that's kind of what the American South was. We had the upper class. These were the plantation owners. The middle class farmers, they owned some slaves. Poor whites owned no slaves. Then you had the free blacks. They're free, second class citizens, though, no political rights, no civil rights. And then there are the slaves at the bottom, right? No rights, considered property, not even considered human beings, essentially property without any rights at all. We'll continue in a moment here.